education, ESL, and ELL education. You are here with your favorite educator, Frank Avella. In this video, we're going to cover everything you ever wanted to know about working with ELL and ESL students. A variety of different topics will be covered, such as second language acquisition and instructional strategies, but we're going to begin with a broad overview. Now, ELL students often fall through the cracks. That's because they are usually well behaved, their parents aren't typically involved, and they don't get the same attention as special education students. There are many associated acronyms. ELL, meaning English Language Learner, ESL, English as Second Language, LEP, Limited English Proficiency. These may soon be replaced by a more positive term called Emergent Bilingual. Nevertheless, terminology is not important. Understand that teaching these children is a very challenging task. As a teacher, you're going to have your work cut out for you. Unfortunately, some teachers feel that it isn't their responsibility to teach these students that don't speak English. There are a number of teachers that feel anxiety. The anxiety comes from the fact that schools seldom prepare teachers. On to the next section, which is accommodations. Teachers must provide ELL students with equal access to the curriculum through accommodations. These accommodations are meant to help ELLs understand simple things that are asked of them. With the help of these accommodations, ELLs should better be able to keep up with their work and maintain the pace of instruction set forth by the teacher. Here are some common examples. Teachers may provide different types of graphic organizers, concrete manipulatives for math, scaffolding or flashcards for vocabulary, extended time, peer tutoring, audiobooks, and even having content presented in their native language. The next section up is communication tips for teachers. Educators should use certain strategies to better help communicate with ELLs. The first strategy is to avoid speaking in idioms and acronyms. Both are particularly confusing for new language learners. Next, teachers should not raise their voice when directly talking to the child. The child may think that you are yelling at them. Enunciate. Your words will sound clearer, and your ELL students will better understand each word that you say. Use hand signals. Use your hand signals as much as you can. Be animated in the way you teach. Communication doesn't have to be all verbal. Take the time to summarize what was just taught through short notes. Be sure to frequently check for understanding, as there is no subjects are more inclined to group work than others. The fifth strategy is total physical response, abbreviated here as TPR. Total physical response, TPR, integrates physical activity with learning. From my experience, students enjoy getting up and getting out of their seats. Therefore, you could expect your students to appreciate this lesson. To get started, the teacher should first model the vocabulary word or action for the student. The word here is meditate, and the teacher is showing the student what it really means to do so. When it's a noun, something like a desk, you can simply ask the student to point to the desk. Students are still allowed to get out of their seats to do the pointing. Of course, actions are a little bit more suited when it comes to TPR. For example, things like waving are easy. Teaching students to jump, so teachers need to make sure that they are actually saying the words while they're performing the actions. And I have to mention that the writing component should be incorporated into the lesson. Just as students have to say, they should also have to write. On to the last instructional strategy, which includes a number of typical supports for ELLs. When the ELLs are new to the classroom, the teacher should first assign a classroom buddy or friend. Earlier I mentioned that ELLs need friends for both social and academic purposes. To make it easier on these children, write in print as opposed to script. Grant these students extended time on their exams. This goes back to the accommodations described. Give them preferential seating, and that often means not by the teacher, but by the assigned classroom buddy. Try to smile and have a warm disposition with ELLs. Procedures are great because these students can learn through observation and follow the crowd. Teachers should have procedures in place regardless of ELLs or not. And lastly, lessons have to be well planned out. The language barrier makes it really difficult for both parties. And now we're going to finish up this wonderful lesson with getting the families of ELL students more involved in the school. And the first way to do that is to invite them to be chaperones on field trips. Specifically, reach out to ELL parents and encourage them to be chaperones. When sending emails to parents, you should translate them because a large majority of these parents do not speak or read English. If they don't come to you, then you gotta go to them. Attend their cultural events. Schools should do their best to make these parents stakeholders and decision makers. Very rarely do you see these parents on school improvement committees. Identify the parents that need to have interpreters and make sure that they get an interpreter whenever there's a meeting. Schools send out welcome letters, but teachers can send out their individual welcome letters also. And lastly, integrate their culture with that of your classroom. That includes more than just hanging up flags and posters. It means making serious changes to the curriculum. Right?
The video's message addresses many aspects of teaching ESL, English as a second language, and provides an overview of the challenges faced by teachers working with ESL students. One of the main challenges is the lack of parental involvement and lack of attention towards ESL students compared to students with special needs. Teachers also need to make accommodation to ensure all students have equal access to the curriculum. Communication strategies such as avoiding the use of confusing idioms and acronyms and giving instruction clearly and slowly are also important. My response to this video is that the stage of second language acquisition from pre-production to advanced fluency are described in detail as well as recommended teaching strategies such as cultural studies, use of realia language experience approaches, group work, total physical response, and specialist.
ESL teaching methodologies. Explained examples, pros and cons. An ESL teaching methodology is a systematic approach or set of strategies and techniques used by educators to teach English to non-native speakers. These methodologies are designed to help teachers plan and deliver effective English language lessons, foster language acquisition, and facilitate language proficiency development. ESL teaching methodologies can vary widely in their focus, techniques, and underlying principles, but they all aim to support students in acquiring and using English for communication and comprehension. So here are 20 ESL teaching methodologies. I will give a quick explanation of 20 most common ESL methodologies with examples, pros and cons. Let me know which teaching methodology you mainly prefer in the comments down below. The direct method is an immersive teaching approach that prioritizes the development of speaking and listening skills while minimizing reliance on translation. In this method, teachers create an environment where students are exposed to the target language as much as possible. Through this constant exposure, learners are encouraged to think and communicate directly in the language they are studying, rather than relying on their native language as a crutch. This approach aims to replicate the way children acquire their first language, emphasizing contextual understanding and meaningful communication. Use pictures and gestures to teach vocabulary instead of translating words. The pros: focuses on real-life communication skills, encourages active participation, enhances fluency. Cons: limited support for grammar and writing, challenging for beginners. The grammar translation method, a traditional pedagogical approach, places a heavy emphasis on the explicit teaching of grammar rules and the translation of text between the target language and the native language. In this method, learners often engage in activities such as translating sentences and passages, dissecting grammatical structures, and memorizing vocabulary lists. The primary goal is to facilitate the understanding of the structural aspects of the language in as newspaper articles or literature to identify and understand grammar rules in practical use. This method enhances grammar comprehension and encourages critical thinking. Analyze newspaper articles or short stories to identify grammar rules in context. Pros: enhances grammar comprehension, teaches grammar in practical use, fosters critical thinking. Cons: may neglect explicit grammar instruction, requires suitable materials, challenging for beginners. The reflective approach encourages students to reflect on their learning process, set goals, and track their language learning progress. Learners keep journals and engage in self-assessment, fostering self-awareness and metacognition. Have students keep journals to track their language learning progress. Pros: fosters self-awareness and responsibility, encourages goal setting, enhances metacognition. Cons: may require additional time and effort, may not suit all students, requires teacher guidance. The eclectic approach combines various teaching methods and techniques to cater to the diverse needs of learners. Educators use a mix of methodologies, selecting the most appropriate ones for specific learning goals and contexts. Use a mix of methodologies depending on the learning goals and characteristics of the class.
The message conveyed in this video is about 20 commonly used ESL teaching methodologies, along with the pros and cons of each method. These methodologies include the direct approach, grammar translation, communicative language teaching, content-based learning, and others. My response to this video could include there is a brief introduction to each methodology and a concise explanation of the pros and cons. Then there are illustrated examples of using each method in English language learning. Recommendation on which method might be most appropriate for a particular learning situation based on student learning situation, based on student characteristic and learning objective, and also emphasize the importance of choosing the right methods to achieve optimal learning outcomes. This video will provide valuable insight for educators who want to improve their English teaching skill and choose methods that the best suit their needs and those of their students.
Productive. Hello everyone, my name is Val and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I will share 10 practical classroom management strategies that will help you create a productive and engaging classroom environment. Teachers worldwide face a few common bad behavior patterns that are the same, regardless of where they are from or where they teach. Students may talk out of turn, make noise, or engage in off-topic conversations, which can disrupt the flow of the lesson and distract other students. Some students may struggle to stay focused and attentive during lessons. They might daydream, fidget, or not participate in class activities. Certain students may consistently avoid participating in class activities, discussions, or assignments. Some students have no respect at all towards the teacher, classmates, or classroom rules. It may include talking back, rudeness, or not following instructions. Some students may become disengaged or unmotivated, leading to a lack of effort in their studies. This behavior can result in incomplete assignments and a general lack of enthusiasm for learning English. Here is what you can do to avoid or address these behavior patterns. One of the first steps in effective classroom management is to establish a routine. This includes setting clear class rules and implementing a warm-up routine. Let me break it down for you. Start by creating a list of class rules. These rules should be simple, easy to understand, and consistently enforced. They help create a safe and respectful learning environment. Make sure to discuss these rules with your students at the beginning of the school year or semester. Next, to do is to follow your slides. It's your map. Promote pair and group work. And manage your class. Interactive whiteboards, educational apps, and online resources can enhance your lessons, making learning more interactive and enjoyable. I put a lot of effort into my PowerPoint presentation.
The video's message discusses 10 practical classroom management strategies to create a productive and engaging classroom environment. Teachers around the world face common patterns of misbehavior such as students speaking out of turn, difficulty focusing, lack of participation, and lack of respect for teachers and classroom rules. The first strategy is also establish routine by making the classroom rules simple and easy to understand. Warm up Routines are also important to prepare students mentally. A point of reward system can be used to motivate students by giving points for participation or positive behavior. The use of call and response and countdown timers is also recommended to keep the class focused. The importance of well-structured lessons, nonverbal communication, and adaptation of teaching for different learning styles of students are also highlighted in the video.
That we can create a special and enjoyable learning space for our students.
Lastly, the importance of communicating with students regularly, thinking positively and continuously learning as a teacher to improve classroom management skill is also emphasized.
And stay for a couple of minutes after the class. It's time-consuming.
My response is that the video emphasized that effective classroom management is a learning process that takes time and invites viewers to continue learning and developing as a teacher.
YouTube channel. There is always something new to discover in the realm of ESL teaching. Remember, effective classroom management is a learning process, and it takes time.